This is day 9 of the August 94 10-day retreat in Springwater. I've noted down a few questions that are left over, which would be good to take up this morning, because tomorrow we will do readings. This will be our last talk of this kind. This came up in a meeting, one person saying, from your talk yesterday, it could almost be interpreted that we're not accountable for what we're doing. Aren't we accountable? We do something that has consequences, and just by being in this moment, what we did doesn't go away, really, does it? Or what someone else did. Yesterday we were looking for the one who does, the doer of deeds, the chooser of decisions. And all that was found was strands, some of them reaching into the infinite past, strands of tendencies, desires, fears, past experiences, with all their memories stored in this mind. The strongest overriding the others. In a situation, in a context in which one may find oneself. Doing or reacting in accordance with all the conditioned material, not just in this organism, but all around us. And now the question pops up again, aren't we accountable for what we do? Accountable to whom? Or what? Of course, society, since the most ancient of days, has constructed systems of bringing about some coherence and justice. And these systems are always questionable. Innocent people can be convicted. Innocent people in that sense of the one who didn't really do it may be convicted due to the cleverness of his or her lawyer. This is the system in this country, different systems in other countries. And human beings are always subject to being persuaded, impressed. We're so gullible if we're not grounded in something other than this conditioned being. Wanting to believe rather than see. Of course, also created by this human mind, this human consciousness, are all the gods, varying from one culture and one age to another. The Christian religion, we're accountable to God, and there will be a last judgment. Who will be convicted at that last judgment? I think in all fairness, it should be all of us. Or none of us. The convicted murderer, would he or she have done or reacted in the way he or she did had there been the presence and light of seeing rather than the conditioned ignorance, unawareness, overtaken by passions or drives for something or against something, all embedded not just in this organism but in this whole of society and maybe even in memory fields. So whom is one to convict? And who are we accountable to? To the gods that we created or that thought created, imagination and fantasy created, and then empowers them to judge us, empowers them to be afraid of them, maybe be good out of fear of being judged, but still not see what we're doing. Some of the most horrendous crimes have been committed to uphold one's religion, one's God, to convert others to one's religion. So I don't want to brush it aside because it's a real concern of this person. Yesterday we talked about being responsible. It's not so different. But today we talk about being accountable. And the question comes up, can we be accountable to ourselves and ourselves only? But not ourselves as this conditioned being that cannot see clearly, but accountable to the clarity of insight, which sees what is so and where reactions come from a tunnel of ignorance directed into a tunnel of ignorance. But that tunnel will dissolve when there's the light of understanding and seeing, which brings with it love and compassion and an amazing wisdom. Without that foundation or ground, there is no justice. This brings me to the other question. One person saying, is there no justice? Are you implying that? Well, is there? Let's look around where it is. I've never found it. The robin I mentioned the other day that was feeding 3 phases of 3 tiny birds, feeding them till they were big and fluffy and able to fly on their own. She was feeding them live butterflies and worms and cherries. At times I was a little vegetarian addition. Cherries and berries were really very popular this year. We could see it by the droppings. But some of the butterflies were still moving. And a few of those robins, I'm quite sure, were eaten by crows. A few of them make it because there are lots of robins around. We mate and propagate and take care of our offspring, and at the same time we're food for others. Now, human beings don't eat each other. But in a way we're consumed by each other in the form of ideas, behaviors, all consumed by righteousness. Righteousness toward others, protecting oneself. All idea, all conditioning, not the light of understanding. Some creatures are born in the desert where they can hardly eke out an existence, but they function in marvelously intelligent ways. Some are born in a few islands are left, a few spots on this earth where there's still no predators for some animals, but that's rapidly changing. For human beings, the communist idea and ideals were trying to bring justice for all, create a classless society, give to everyone according to his or her needs as part of that manifesto. I've never read the whole thing, but this was one of the slogans, to each according to his or her need, and it put a good part of humanity on fire to achieve that. And what did the system achieve? Our basic drive for power, for privilege, for domination over others, overtakes our ideals every time. And as for our needs, what are they? They are always changing, aren't they? Is there such a thing as an absolute need that is unchangeable? Well, that would be another whole topic for another talk, but our needs for remuneration, that's what it was meant. Ownership of the means of production changes. The more we get, the more we want, isn't it so? Unless there is a different base of looking and being, we want more. And we need more. As basic needs are satisfied and secondary and tertiary needs develop. And one needs to save and the other one needs to spend. So the spender, is he needier? He doesn't have anything left, or she. So all of our attempts to create justice have failed, are failing. Although one reaches a measure of functioning with some coherence, but it always breaks down. And it needs constant repair and manage and maintenance, or else revolution, which is the story of the history of humankind. The winner of the revolution becoming the oppressor of the future most of the time. The privileged, the corrupted. Not always, there have been exceptions. But for exceptions, true exceptions, there must be something else operating than our common drives, for our common self-centered drives for enhancing ourselves and those and that with which we identify. Which may be a large circle or a small circle. And maybe it's only with a breaking apart of this identification, or rather a seeing through it. That's what's needed. Seeing it thoroughly, intelligently. The identification with this body, this bunch of images I have about myself, and those and that which is mine. A seeing through and permeating that identity with wholesomeness, with a love that is for all, because it's not enclosed. That may be the only basis for a different kind of justice, not justice in our conventional sense, trying to make everyone get the same thing. or be born with the same heredity, with the same capacities and looks and talents, wealth, or nice living conditions. But with the breakdown of the walls of me and mine, the identity irradiated with awareness, maybe a realization that all of the manifestations taking place are ourselves. There's no separation from them. Even though I may not feel the pain of your cholera, it is there and it can hit here at any time. You're not separate from me because of your physical handicaps or advantages or youth or old age. I am all of that. So there's no need for jealousy or envy. When that is seen to be one total, variegated manifestation of what? Sometimes in sitting quietly, no desire stirring or fear agitating, just the wind moving and crickets humming, breath flowing, the doves cooing. Where are the barriers? Where is the separation? But the instant the thought is born or reborn, if you will, I don't get it, or I've got it. I want more of it. I'm afraid I'll lose it. Before that thought is born, what is there? And the thought born brings with it desire and going for it and all of the physical organismic machinations. But before it arises, what is there? What does it come out of? It's been given many names, but the name isn't what is. So having just used that word, a thought being reborn, another question that was brought up yesterday after our little talk on karma was, but sometimes in my dreams mostly I do have some vague feelings of former lives. Is there something to that we've had former lives? There's a great fascination with us, not just former lives, but future lives, because it can override our fear of ending this life. But what is this life of ours? Most of the time, isn't it dreaming? Living in a dream about ourselves and the world and each other. What we should be doing and should become, and what we are and what they are. Wanting to dream of pleasant things and yet compelled to dream of fearful things that may happen in the future or have happened in the past and may repeat themselves. So why worry about past life dreams? This one is enough. Dreams perpetuating themselves endlessly. It doesn't have to go very far. Thought dreams perpetuating themselves. Dream thoughts. Idea systems perpetuating themselves. Generation to generation. But we want to be in there someplace. Find ourselves as me. Can we look at that now? And not just dream about the way we were and the way we will be. Pleasant as though that may be. What are we right this moment? And is there a possibility to wake up from the dream? And be what we truly are. This is what occupied one person's mind a lot during this retreat. The realization at one moment, hanging up some wet laundry, this moment is all there is. Which the person said was not an intellectualization, not a fine idea, but it was seen to be so. It was so. And then, of course, the wanting more of this moment. No, that's not what he said. What he said was, after a while there seemed to be a missing other side of the equation. This moment is all there is, but that's the rebirth of thought. Is it all there is, that this moment is all there is? Or something of that sort? Or is there maybe something more? Maybe I haven't gotten it all. The I never gets it all. It's limited. It's thought, it's memories, it's wants and desires and fears. And then also mentioning every morning the beauty of the sunrise. We've had some astonishing mornings. And then the remark, it seems like a string of moments that are all they are. A string of them. This moment being all there is. And then the next moment. And yesterday's sunset and the one before and maybe tomorrow's. Are these all strung along moments that are all that is? Or is thought operating and they're trying to string together and create a continuity which simply doesn't exist in the beauty of this moment? That's all there is. There's no continuity in it because thought is not stirring to make it last or fear its ending. So what is time? Yesterday's moment and the day before and this moment and the next and tomorrow's moment. Doesn't thought and thinking in these terms create time? The time that was, the time that is, and the time that will be created by the power of thought with its imaging and memories and projections. And feeling oneself as one reflects about oneself, caught up in this time, trapped in it. Trapped in the past, trapped in the present, and trapped in the future. Or else, when it isn't felt as prison-like, all the possibilities for a better future. The kingdom to come. Paradise. We touched upon it in past talks. Very, very difficult for a human being endowed with mind, endowed with thought and imagination and memory, to just be here. Because memory has the momentum of thousands of years, maybe millions of years. And yet in listening to the leaves stirring, crows cawing, and a sigh or a deep breath, heart beating, the hum of the plain, and not just the sense impressions, but the silence that permeates it all, the quietness, the stillness that is not manufactured by thought. Where is the weight of the past, this instant, of thoroughly being without knowing and without needing to know? Is thought reborn? And it manufactures time, and its stresses and strains and hopes and fears. If it's at ease, quiet, and listening, where is time? Because I can look on the watch and say it's 11:06 and 32 seconds. It's a convenience, like running a retreat, so everybody more or less comes to eat at the same time and the food doesn't spoil. Since some of us want to sit together, to know when do people sit together, I want to be there in time. And as we sit quietly, to stay quiet that 25 minutes so we don't disturb each other, all a very useful function of time. But then as when a sitting is time the only weight and power, very often it is what was and what will be, thought roaming and rummaging, powerfully attracted to both pleasure and pain. And as we've gone into in previous talks, the story of my life, incredible magnetism to it, attracting energy to itself, the story of my life, with all that I'm identified with. The emotions it can arouse, the self-pity or the self-glory, the highs and the lows, and that desire for the story to continue forever. Hopefully in better ways than it's running right now. One feels, one thinks. Because enthralled and encased by the story, are we in touch with the crickets? The sound of emptiness. Someone asked, that was earlier in the retreat, I think we had talked about Rwanda and the great dying there. Great suffering, great dying. Enormous misery. And our hearts are always particularly wrenched when we see little children, particularly children crying without a mother. I don't know of anything more painful. We also talked about this boy whose picture was taken with wide open eyes, not focused on the news media man. Looking as if in touch with something other than his waning body. And someone after that talk asked, does it matter when we die? Is there a right time to die? First of all, with questioning the whole matter of death, does one feel uncomfortable? Or doesn't feel the uncomfortableness because one doesn't want to feel it? One has read and heard so much about death. It seems to be ever more permeating not just the news but our entertainment. Violent death seems to be the prime entertainment, making the most money, which may create an indifference and a callousness about living, or cynicism, or strange fascination with violent death, which is not really in touch with one's true feelings about one's own ending. So that's why the question was asked, not just to go with the content of what is said, and also listen to the crows. And are there feelings of queasiness? Something stirring that doesn't want to be stirred up. Just to feel it is enough. This work is not an advocacy of doing, but of noticing, seeing, hearing, in touchness. So does it matter when we die? Is there a right time of dying? An ancient saying comes to mind, which I always treasured. The morning glory, which blooms for one day, is not one bit different from the giant pine that lives for 1,000 years. The morning glory that just lives for one day, not one bit different from the giant pine, 1,000 years old. What does that mean? It touches one, doesn't it? One may not, quote unquote, understand it. And of course it can be explained and rationalized, intellectualized about. But if it touches one, just to leave it there. People sometimes say this, I like your talks, but I don't know some of the time or most of the time, what you're talking about. I don't understand it. It's all right. Let it be. A lot of things that we hear that or see that touch us sort of seem to function like tiny seeds, poppy seed or smaller. I opened up the little husk of a petunia seed. I couldn't believe it. Have you seen how tiny those seeds are? Hardly visible. Smaller than the dot you put on the eye. Yet if you plant it and it has sun and good soil and rain, a whole jungle of petunias can develop. So is there a right time to die? Does it matter when we die? It all depends on how one feels and thinks. If one is totally identified with this body, and with identification goes desire for more and fear of less. Desire for no ending and fear of ending, doesn't it? It inevitably goes with identification. It's a mixed blessing. I don't know whether it's any blessing at all. Of course, if I feel I want to accomplish a lot of stuff still in this life, then sudden death seems the wrong time. But the amazing thing is, with all the accomplishing, someone else will pick it up. People have here, for the past few years, been concerned what will happen to the center if Toni dies. What will we do? Will the center continue? Who knows? Truth doesn't die. Insight doesn't die. Seeing, awareness, it's there, it's available. The intelligence and love of seeing is available. Not up for grabs, I don't mean it this way. It's when the grabbiness stops, it's there. So, someone dies, someone else is born. There's space for everyone and everything. Temporarily manifested. Most of the time, before we were born, where were we for those billions and billions of years since the Big Bang? Where were we? We're not so much worried about that. We're more worried about where we will be, and that we won't be, that weighs on us. We'll be where we were. Nowhere. Everywhere, but not make a thought out of it, a comforting, inspiring idea. Then we're going to be afraid of losing it. So could one say, since questions conditionally demand answers, whenever one dies is the right time to die? What else can one say? And does the right time of dying mean letting go of what is now seen to be already gone, almost gone? Maybe the time most human beings wake up, unless one keeps on dreaming of what's going to happen in the bardo or or someplace. So that this question has come up too in meetings. Is it only at the time of death that there is the opportunity of letting go, of giving up this identity with a body, which one has observed or seen or heard of happens to human beings, dying in a state of love or of no fear, no holding, just being or not being, it doesn't matter. They have to push away until there is this right time of dying at our death? Or can it happen while alive? That's the big question. And not work on it intellectually or ideationally or philosophically, religiously, of beginning to renunciate. Because if one wants to give away one's possessions, it's all right. But does it come out of an idea or because needing to be unburdened? It's the Eastern way, renunciating the family or the business, going into the mountains, caves, monasteries. A lot of this is still fraught with idea of getting something. Maybe one would have to be with that person. But is it possible without any special idea of a special path or way of accomplishing this feat of dying to everything, that it happens on its own? Maybe just for a moment. Time is of no essence. Just being here, not knowing what one is, and not needing to become something in the process. Because this being here is no process, it's eternity, if you will. Because time is absent. And not to make an effort to get it or to hold on to it or to bring it back. It happens by itself. We will end here for today.